ping came in doubled. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the frequency, not the origin stamp, not the distress classification. The doubling. Two signals occupying the same packet, layered so perfectly over each other that my board read them as a single burst. I had been on the night watch for 4 hours and had drunk 2 mugs of whatever the galley was calling coffee this week, and I almost logged it as interference and moved on. I didn't. I split the packet manually. It took 11 minutes. Commander Vesh was asleep. Lieutenant Corral was doing a hull seal inspection on Deck 3, and it was just me and the board and the long, quiet hum of the Avellan's drive at low transit. What I found once I had the 2 signals separated was this. First ping was a Veth-Sorai convoy distress marker. The compressed pulse format their refugee administration uses. 7 data layers. Medical flags on 3 of them. The second was older, much older. It was a coalition waystation's automated rebroadcast, dead station, no crew, still cycling its last received emergency on a loop the way those old relays did before the coalition updated its protocol. 2 signals had merged somewhere in transit. Same vector, slightly different origin points, and arrived at my board as one garbled packet that looked like nothing in particular. Separately, they told a story. The Veth-Sorai convoy had been transmitting for at least 19 hours. The rebroadcast put them in the Corville drift, 11 light minutes off the Avellan's current heading. The medical flags they were not good. 2 of the 7 data layers were thermal breach warnings. 1 was an atmosphere loss indicator. The Veth-Sorai had aimed their ping at the coalition waystation. The waystation had been dark for at least 40 years. Nobody had updated the Veth-Sorai's emergency contact registry to reflect that. Their distress call had landed on a dead machine, been picked up and rebroadcast on the old relay frequency, drifted through 11 light minutes of nothing, and landed on my board. They had not aimed it at Earth. They had not aimed it at us at all. I sat with that for approximately 30 seconds. Then I pulled up the Avellan's nav overlay and drew a course correction. I want to be clear about something. I did not have authorization to do what I did next. Commander Vesh had not cleared any detour. Our orders were a mapping run in the outer Ceres band. Corville drift was not the Ceres band. What I had was a split signal, a dead relay, and a medical flag I had never seen outside of training simulations. Thermal breach on a manned transport means the hull is failing from the inside out, which means the people inside it are in the process of dying, which means you do not wait for authorization. I logged the course correction with a timestamp and my name and the words "Acknowledged Distress Signal," proceeding under Protocol 7. Protocol 7 being the emergency navigation clause that lets a comms officer plot an immediate detour when lives are at stake, and the commanding officer is not available for immediate consultation. Then I went and woke Commander Vesh. She looked at the split signal for about 4 seconds. Then she looked at the thermal breach flags. Then she said, "How long to intercept?" 2 minutes at Transit 3. Go to Transit 4. Transit 4 drops our fuel margin below. I heard you, Lieutenant. Transit 4. We made it in 18 minutes. There were 4 transports in the Corville drift. One of them was already gone. I want to say that clearly, because the story of what happened that day should not be scrubbed clean. We came out of Transit 4, and the long-range scan showed 4 contacts, and then 3, because the 4th contact broke apart as we were looking at it. Thermal breach, catastrophic, 17 seconds. There was nothing. Then, there was debris. Commander Vesh did not say anything. She pulled up the tactical overlay and started working the problem with what remained. Problem was this. The other 3 transports were failing at different rates. The nearest had 6 to 8 hours of structural integrity left. The second had perhaps 3. The third was the one that had triggered the thermal breach flag. It had minutes, not hours, and it was a large transport. Its registry showed 412 passengers, and the Avellan carries 2 emergency docking collars. 2 collars. 412 passengers. I am not going to walk through the mathematics of that in detail. Commander Vesh worked the problem. Crew worked the problem. We docked with the critical transport first, ran 2 full emergency transfers in sequence, packed the Avellan's cargo bay and its crew quarters and its med bay with Veth-Sorai refugees until our own crew were sleeping in the corridor. And we held the dock collar open past its rated structural tolerance while the Veth-Sorai transport fell apart around us in sections. The engineering log from that 18-minute window is something I will not describe here. We got 370, one of the 412 out before the collar failed. Then we moved to the second transport. I was on the comms board the whole time. I kept getting hails from the convoy's lead vessel, a mid-size refugee administrative ship called the Tessavar Cord, which I could not immediately help because we were physically locked to the critical transport, and I kept answering those hails in what I hoped was a calm and professional voice, telling them we were working, telling them to maintain their current heading, telling them help was proceeding in order of urgency. On the fourth or fifth hail, the voice on the other end changed. It was lower, older, steadier. A woman, she said. In Veth-Sorai, which I speak at operational level, she said, I am looking at your hull markings. I do not know your ship. I do not know your flag configuration. Who sent you? I was in the middle of a docking collar extension calculation, I said. Lieutenant Dara O.C., Patrol, Corvette Avellan. I'll have someone to your vessel in approximately 40 minutes. There was a silence. Then she said, Earth. It was not a question. It was not gratitude. It was a woman running a fast internal calculation, matching what she was seeing against everything. She knew about Earth's patrol range, about how far the Corval drift is from any registered Earth patrol corridor, and coming up short. I heard her come up short. It is a specific sound, that silence, when someone is standing at a viewport, looking at a ship that should not exist. These coordinates and cannot find the explanation in any file they carry, I said. We intercepted your distress signal. It merged with an old relay rebroadcast in transit. We were the closest vessel. Another silence, shorter this time. Then, we did not transmit to Earth. No, I said, you transmitted to a dead coalition waystation. It rebroadcast on the old relay frequency. We happened to be on heading. I heard her exhale. It was a very long exhale, she said. How long has that waystation been dark? About 40 years. Best I can tell. She said nothing for a moment then. We have been using that contact registry for 30 years. I finished the docking collar calculation, I said. I'd update it. We got the second transport stabilized over the next 90 minutes. The third transport we docked with 2 hours after that and ran a controlled transfer. Less urgent, more orderly, 206 additional passengers. By the time Commander Vesh declared the situation resolved, her crew was carrying 583 Veth-Sorai refugees in a ship rated for a crew of 41. And our drive smelled like something that would need a full service inspections before our next transit, and everyone was tired in a way that goes below the muscles. The convoy leader, I learned later, her name was Coordinator Mavi Seres, came aboard. The Avellan personally when we docked for the final transfer. She stood in the corridor outside the cargo bay, was wall-to-wall sleeping mats, and quiet voices, and the particular stillness of people who had stopped being afraid some hours ago and were now simply exhausted. She looked at all of it for a long time. Then she found me. I was standing at the cargo bay hatch with a tablet, still running the medical flag log from the critical transport transfer, and she said, I need to send a formal report to my administration. I need to list the responding vessel and its authorization, I said. Avellan Earth Patrol, Protocol 7 Detour. It's all the authorization there is. She looked at me steadily. She said, there will be no record of a request to Earth. No, I said. There won't be. The signal was never meant for you. No, I said it wasn't. She was quiet for a moment. Around us the cargo bay hummed with low conversation, and the ship's drive made its tired sound. Somewhere toward the back of the bay, a child was asleep against her father's shoulder. Coordinator Soros said, Then why did you answer? I thought about the split packet, the 11 minutes it took to separate it. The thermal breach flag I almost didn't see, I said. The signal was close enough. She looked at me for a long time after that. She did not say anything else. She did not need to.